Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Cole, fellow colleagues. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. As any family or small business knows, a budget is extremely important. In Washington, it's supposed to guide the fiscal trajectory of our nation and how to allow the American people to keep Congress honest about its spending. Unfortunately, the failure by my colleagues on the other side to pass a budget has not stopped them from spending. The House has already voted on several spending bills for fiscal year 2022 without any sort of real budget to guide the process. And now they want us to go backwards and do a budget when the appropriations process is already well underway. Sounds familiar? Of course it does. This happened just earlier in the year. This is exactly how my Democrat colleagues abused the budget process back in the spring, to conjure up a way to use 51 votes in the Senate to enact a radical agenda no one actually wants. Budgeting means coming up with a plan before you start spending. Of course, the budget is not about strengthening the fiscal integrity of our nation, nor is this budget about getting government spending and inflation under control. We know it's not about protecting the integrity of programs our seniors depend on. And it certainly does not protect America's working class families and those making less than $400,000 a year from a tax increase. In fact, it does the opposite. The whole effort is simply to turn this budget into a political tool to unlock the door to at least $3.5 trillion in new spending and taxes on a host of policies which do nothing to fix the crisis that American families are facing. The inflation crisis, the border crisis, the energy crisis, the Afghanistan crisis. This budget only makes it worse. My Democrat colleagues are using the budget to enact amnesty for millions, to expand government control healthcare, to subsidize blue state taxes for the wealthy, to banish low-cost traditional electricity, and provide handouts for wealthy environmentalists who happen to be donors. We are only 9 legislative days from the government shutting down. It has been weeks since our debt limit has expired. And the only thing that the majority party seems to be focused on is how to spend as much as they can in as little time as possible. We cannot, in good faith, ignore the effects that government spending will have on inflation and the price of goods and services. American families are paying for months. The White House and Democrats in Congress have argued that inflation is only transitory. Meanwhile, prices have continued to climb and are on pace to rise to the highest it has since 1981. The American people are being asked to ignore the real pain they are feeling at the moment and hold out for the promise of a better tomorrow. And and what does that promise look like exactly? I'll tell you, more runaway government spending and massive debt that working class families will be forced to bear if this budget is passed. $68 trillion in spending over 10 years, the highest sustained spending level in American history. The spending in this budget, combined with what has already been spent since the Democrats took control of the House of Representatives in 2019, equals more than the total taxes paid by all Americans since the founding of this nation. There is $17 trillion in new debt in this budget, more than the value of every economy on earth except the United States. This one budget resolution that you all have presented is more added debt over the next 10 years than the entire economy of every country in the world but the United States. In 10 years, under this budget, it will cost us $1 trillion just to cover the interest on our debt, more than what we will spend on Medicare just this year alone, and more than our entire national defense budget at the end of this decade. We cannot inflate our way out of inflation or power an economy on empty promises. The way we move forward together as one country is to use the budget to keep Congress honest in its spending and our debt under control to keep America strong. The American people cannot afford this budget. Yield back.